Alright, as you can see, I've got the driver's seat on the bench. When I was driving the car, it always seemed to be a bit low. Just thought perhaps the foam had begun to break up with age. But as you can see, there's nothing wrong with the foam. It hasn't broken up at all. But the first thing that was obvious was when I took the clips off, the material is brown. Somebody didn't like the colour. When I took the heater box off, and the dark green colour underneath was much too dark to be the normal racing green that the MGs had. But in 1971, halfway through the year, apparently they changed colours and they introduced a new one called Mallard Green, which was very dark, and they dropped the racing green. But with the Mallard came a different interior. They were no longer black, there was navy blue carpets, but with the Mallard they got autumn leaf, which was a brown. So obviously this car has got a complete change of interior and it's all wrong. Looking at the seat cushion, it's very thin, and there's this dotted red line all the way round, and when you lift it up, somebody has hacked off half the cushion. I can only assume that it was a previous owner who was a tall bloke and his head was a bit too close to the roof. So he's tried to gain a bit of space by cutting away the foam underneath. It's a new foam required. Well, here's the new cushion. He cut 2 inches off. This is a bit different. It's got thigh support here. So whether that increase and I'll still be able to cover it with this one, I don't know. But I shall no doubt discover it. Well, there it is, finished. Not too hard a job. And I was glad to find that he hadn't trimmed off any of the material, so I had plenty there. Proof will be in sitting on it later on, after I've fitted it. The seats are fixed to the floor of the car with these runners. This, first of all, is a piece of wood, hardwood, fortunately in good condition, which is next to the floor. There are spaces that fit in between, and this goes on the top like so, and this edge here slides into a similar one on the bottom of the seat, like this. And these holes are where the position of the seat with this lever, and this simply locks into one of the holes like so. It's a bit of a fiddle to fit on the car because the position of these holes is quite far back under the seat, so it's hard to get to the bolts. Still, it came off all right, so it's going to go back all right. the seat's in position, it's made a tremendous difference. 2 inches higher up, and it's a lovely comfortable position to drive in. I can see all the instruments and out the screen much better. The difficulty was the second rail, the one on the inside. Every time I tried, it fell off, so I had to devise a method of holding it in place till the seat was flat on the floor. Took me a while to do that. I have bodywork problems. First of all, the door sticks out slightly there. It's reasonably level there. Still not quite right at this point. And looking along the line, it's not dead straight like it should be. So it's affected the bonnet. But if I look at the gap along the top, that's pretty even. It's perhaps a little wider at the ends, but otherwise it's okay. Looking at the gap on this side, it's not too bad. It's a little wider at that end. But looking at this side, it gets wider and wider and wider until I've got quite a big gap. And compare it with this one. So with the grille in the right place, dead centre, fortunately this piece here, which is supposed to line up with the badge underneath, no longer fits centrally. The problem is, if I move the bonnet across to close that gap, what it's going to do is it's going to make this piece, which already projects beyond where it should, it's going to make it even more prominent. And at this end, it's the reverse. It's gone back in too far. By altering the hinges, I've managed to make the gap between the wing and the bonnet equal on each side. The only thing is, it does project a little bit here, and on this side it's retracted a little bit. It meant moving this, unfortunately it meant moving this catch. Meant filing the cross member a bit. This is the cone that fits into the catch at the bottom, and I need to find it. I've got it right in the centre. So I've put this paper over the hole, and I'm going to lower the bonnet. There's a blob of oil on the end of the cone, and I'm just going to touch it on the paper, and that should tell me how close to the centre I am. That's the theory. And there's the blob of oil. It's just about in the centre. So I'm quite happy with that. That rusty patch is caused by an aluminium tag. Being aluminium, there's electrostatic action, and it was covered with white powder, and when I scraped it back and took it off, it's covered in rust, which I've now treated, and I'll do my best to cover it up and put the tag back on again. But this time I will put some break between, a bit of tape or something between it and the bodywork. Well, there it is, sort of green. Not quite the right one, but never mind. It's not going to be seen under the bonnet. I've no idea what the number is. Maybe it's because of that letter P on the end, that it's something to do with the colour of the paint. Just a guess. The door now fits flush. That's quite reasonable. Straight line down the side. I found that all 6 of the countersunk 1/4 inch set screws had damaged threads, but fortunately I've got the taps and dies which renovated them, so they're okay. I'm quite happy with that. Still not happy about the bonnet. I don't know what else I can do with it. I might have another go, but I can't see a way of curing that. After I'd fitted the door and made sure that this was all in line, this button, which you press to open, was all loose and floppy. So, had a look inside. It's quite a simple device. It's actually just a bolt with a lock nut on, which you can see right down there. And that was all loose. The lock nut wasn't locking, and it was all flopping about. So it's a question of getting a couple of spanners in there and adjusting it to the right length and tightening up the lock nut. I thought I'd take the panel off, see if I could do it from the inside, but I couldn't, of course. Very awkward with 2 spanners, and you couldn't make a full turn, just 1/12 where you have to keep turning the spanner over each time. In the end, it's a nice tight fit, and it opens and closes with a very satisfying double click, as it should do. No slamming necessary. I only hope when I put the weather seal all the way around the window and down the side there and all along the bottom that it doesn't make it tight. Well, here's the panel. Doesn't look too bad. It's grained, a little bit degree of padding on it. It's got a Kenwood speaker in there, which is quite a good quality one. But on the other side, you can see actually it's a cheap nasty one. It's just a piece of hardboard, not very thick either. And at some time, of course, it's got wet. The weather seal has obviously failed, and once hardboard gets wet, it expands and doesn't return to its original shape. So whether this came off another vehicle or not, or whether this one, I don't know. That is the wrong one anyway. It's not for this model of car, not for 1971. So it's decision time. If I'm going to have the car resprayed its dark mallard green and therefore have a tan brown inside, it means it's got to be replaced. The thing is, what comes first? Do you have the respray done first and then the interior, or vice versa? And what sort of a respray are you going to have? Is it going to be a full job, taking the windscreen and rear windscreen out as well and doing it properly, or is it a cheaper version where you mask everything off? I'll have to think about it. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching.